Whoever is listening, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Man with a Plan podcast. I'm Grayson Mann, and guys, I'm going to advertise this. I'm going to advertise the energy, the hype. But when I say this is an interview to tune into, get excited. I got Clemson women basketball head coach Shawn Poppie. Super excited about him. Success follows him everywhere, and he's looking to do that at Clemson now. So, Shawn, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, I appreciate you having me. We're finally getting both feet. I feel like on the ground, and we're up and running. Workouts have started, and the excitement continues. So I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that theme of excitement and sort of how your first couple months at Clemson have been. But what I like to do with these sort of guests, and whether it's talking to athletes, coaches, I'd love to get their background and sort of give you the floor to introduce yourself to my audience in this first segment. So, just how did you get your start with basketball? Obviously, you have a collegiate career background there. You have spent time at Virginia Tech, Furman, UT Chattanooga, now Clemson. So, how did we get to this point? What's your background, your story?
Yeah, I was telling actually our kids yesterday, we did a little team bonding thing and just learning one another. And, I think that when you go through life, you have a goal, a vision, a plan, especially when you're in college. And for me, I'm from a small town in Illinois. I've always loved the game of basketball, but honestly, it always felt my high school coach had taught me so much about life through the game. And I wanted to give back to young people somehow, some way. But going through college, my dream really was I was in a sports management major, was to get that degree and go back to my small town of Illinois and in a sense, kind of create youth sports, right? Like everything there's in whatever little school district you're in, but they don't really have the whole youth sports organization. That's kind of what my plan was. And got done with a good 4-year career at Limestone College and wanted to test the waters overseas a little bit. Didn't go necessarily as planned. And as I was in that transition, do I want to keep playing? What does this look like? Was literally getting ready to go be a substitute teacher while I figured it out. Had some contracts kind of lined up down the road. And the guy that recruited me, Corey Fox, he's still the head coach at Limestone College for the women's team. He recruited me and had transitioned to the women's program during my career. Gives me a call and says, "Hey, you want to come be my assistant while you figure this thing out? And at the end of the year, you want to go play some more? Go ahead and do it. If you love it, stay." And so that was my first opportunity. 22 years old, and fell in love with just the college. With really the women's side, I felt like there was an instant respect. And I felt like I was just thrown right in the deep end, right? There was no being a GA and learning all this stuff. It was just go figure it out. And that was it. I hung up the shoes and became a coach full-time. Again, as you mentioned before, I've spent it's kind of like a military career a little bit. You're a couple years here, a couple years there, but spent a lot of years here in the upstate of South Carolina. Limestone College, obviously in Gaffney, South Carolina. Went to school there 4 years, coached there for 4 years, then moved right up Interstate 85 into Spartanburg, and had just the back end of the transition of USC Upstate as they went from Division II to Division I, and helped kind of build that program a little bit before I moved on to Furman. Again, I just kept going up Interstate 85 there for the first 10, 12 years of my career. I was fortunate enough to get the call from Kenny Brooks to join his initial staff at Virginia Tech, where we, in a sense, built something I felt very, very special, kind of one that mirrors this Clemson job. We can probably talk more about that as the podcast goes on. But again, I learned so much from him and was fortunate enough that Mark Wharton took a chance on me at UT Chattanooga to have my first head job. And we went down there for 2 years and had a lot of success, and get the call from Graham to come, in a sense, back to the upstate where I'm not from here, but I feel like I grew up here. And so now I sit in this chair and have to pinch myself about once a day that I get an opportunity to lead this program.
So let's actually talk about that conversation with Graham Neff and sort of how that came to be with this opportunity at Clemson, because the way I sort of was seeing this being charted was as Clemson's men's team was starting to have that meteoric rise, get to the NCAA tournament, you were on full blast with advertisements. It felt like the women's basketball Twitter was doing it. I was talking to Faxon about this. It was like, man, this is an excellent job of just sort of, they were treating you like this A-list celebrity at Clemson. And it was really awesome to see. But that conversation with Neff and sort of what he sold you on is what you could take this basketball program to Just what were those initial conversations like, and sort of how did he pitch you on being the leading man for this program?
Yeah, I got a phone call, I think on a Friday, and said, "Hey, let's connect with Graham and Stephanie, and on a Saturday." And I said, "Okay, I'd love to just let's get on an initial phone call, see how it goes." That was said 30 minutes, right? Well, that lasted dang near an hour. It felt natural. It felt like we were had known each other for a long, long time. And to me, I'm a big family person, right? That's something we talk about in our program. It's what I want to be a part of. It's what we had at Chattanooga and Virginia Tech, and that really resonated to me. That there's a synergy here from President Clemens all the way through our athletic department, and that was the initial excitement, and that kind of led into the next steps. For Graham and really the whole crew flew down and met me in Chattanooga, where we sat across from one another. One continue just to get to know one another, the stories and who we are. Uh, but when it got all laid out to me, really Graham kind of flipped it to me and said, "What's kind of the outside world view Clemson women's basketball as?" And so I've kind of had a front row seat to it, and you always wondered why couldn't it be more special than what it is. And as he laid everything that Clemson has to offer, the resources, the vision ahead, my answer was, "There's no reason we can't be." And that mixed with who we are as people, the family, Clemson family is something that everyone talks about, but I promise you, it's a real thing. Really enticed me to have an opportunity to come and lead here in the ACC.
And so when you get the phone call saying, "Hey, you're our guy," what's sort of your reaction there? You talked about having to pinch yourself, but take me through that initial moment where Graham says, "Job is yours if you want it."
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting. So in that time that they flew down, not only was it Graham and Stephanie and Kevin and again administration, but Graham's wife Kristen flew down too to meet with my wife, right? And so as we leave out of the airport concourse and head back towards home, I look at my wife and um, she's like, "If we get this opportunity, I think we need to be all in." And for my wife to tell me that, because obviously this is a family deal, I'm having to uproot, not only my wife but my three children, and but it felt like this could be home. And so from then, again, if you look back, what we were doing, we're trying to make an NCAA run ourselves. You had to kind of flip your focus and really make sure that on our side of things, that we were giving our best to our young people there. And so when that call does come in, again, it's kind of after the agonizing defeat of ending a year. It became very difficult. And it sounds wild because it was the most bittersweet moment of my life. Is I became so excited because I do believe that we're a perfect fit for this job. But then on the bitter part is you have to walk into a locker room and tell a group of 11 that have given everything they have for you for 2 years, that you've decided to take another position to better your own career and really your family's sake. So it was very bittersweet, but one, I knew that I felt like I was a perfect fit for what they were looking for, and what this place needs to make it special again.
And something that sold me on it was your initial introductory press conference, and sort of how I come in there, the big board at Little John's lit up with your graphic, and they got the red carpet out. You're being brought out by the mascot, and I turn over and I go, "This is something else." And just listening to you speak with your initial pitch, with all the introductory questions, it didn't feel like the things that need to be said. It felt really genuine, and that's something I really want to stress with this audience is that's when I was like, I need to find a way to get Shawn on the podcast and sort of have him talk about that. But what was that day like for you, just sort of having that red carpet affair treatment, having to step on there with Graham, get that introductory, the bright lights of Little John, just sort of pitching your vision to not just the media, but people watching? Because there was a lot of excitement when I initially asked our subscribers at TI when I was working there. I was like, "Hey, if there's any interest in this Shawn Poppie press conference, I'll go cover it." And pages on pages of people going, "Yes, like please go. We want to hear what he has to say." And just going to see there and getting to see that transition live was so fascinating to me. So what was that day like for you? And then just to jump off of that, what have these next couple months have been just sort of adjusting to this community and therefore
It was a lot. I mean, to get the grand entrance, kind of a little funny backstory. Again, my wife and 3 kids are with me, and I'm thinking, there's no way my 3 kids are going to walk down this red carpet and we're not going to make a scene before I get introduced as the new head coach. So, as we're sitting in the back hallway, I'm telling my wife and my kids, like, okay, like, why don't you guys kind of sneak out and go sit down? And when my 8-year-old looked out and saw the red carpet and the music playing, he's like, "Nope, I'm going with you." I'm like, so we made it a quick executive decision that we all got to walk out together, and I wouldn't have wanted any other way. It was a special moment for me, kind of that aha moment, but not only to walk out and kind of get that grand entrance, but the people, in the audience, to look over with Dabo in the stands, and obviously Brad, who's just coming off, a run that they just had, and collectively through all the other sporting teams. Obviously, the media coverage was phenomenal, but it really, to me, engulfed of what everything talks about of family, and that really was, it meant something to me. It always will. And then to share my vision. I'm not one that loves to talk about myself. I love to talk about what we are going to become. And so that was a little difficult, right? To sit up and talk about, yes, we are going to get this program where it needs to go, but it ain't about me. I know I'm supposed to be the leader of this program, and I will be, to the best of my abilities, but it's going to take more than me. It's my staff, the administration, our fan support. And so how do we do that? Well, we just be ourselves. I think that we're people's people, right? And I think that if we are the best version of ourselves and we're open to that, we're not going to sell false dreams and false reality. It's this is who we are. We're going to work our tail off and represent this university to the best of our ability, while we have open arms, because it's going to take, like I mentioned, the fan base, the administration, my current staff, the players that we've now, again, since that moment, I think we had 2 on the roster as I'm sitting up there speaking. So it's hard to sell too much, because I don't know what we're going to look like. And then if you really look at that, it was, I believe at noon was the press conference on a Tuesday, and at 2 o'clock we had our first visit, right? So it immediately turned into business mode as soon as we walked off that stage and took a couple pictures, to how are we going to build this. Now, again, when you inherit 2 players, and we were fortunate enough to get a couple to come back, scholarship players that were in the portal, we had to build a team. And I don't necessarily want to build this year to year, team to team. I want to build a program. And so I'm very excited with what we've put together for this upcoming team, but it is a lot of 1-year kids. And I'm excited about how we're going to represent this program. I think we have talent. I think we got great kids that are willing to work, but we're really going to have to fast forward this thing into the high school ranks, with the 25 and 26 classes, so that you're building a program. Not to say we won't ever use the transfer portal, right? That's not what I'm saying, but we're not going to go get 8 grad transfers every year. That's just not how it's going to be, and I don't think that's how you build a sustained culture and program.
You talk about the transfer portal and sort of the word that I use for it is chaos. And I think for each sport, it's a little different. So for the last 2 months, you talk about having only 2 kids on the roster at the time. Just sort of how do you go from, okay, now I got the job, I've done like the hard part, and then it's, okay, now I need to build a roster. I need to sell people on this school and my vision. What do you do? Is it easier, do you feel, as a coach that's newer to the program, where there's a lot of buzz and excitement, not just for yourself, but for the community around, to sell a player on that than maybe if you were in 2 years, 3 years, and being able to say, this is what it is. There's no sort of like looping around it, if that makes any sense. Like, you get to sort of
100%.
paint the picture as it continues to grow.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to maximize that opportunity, and that timeline, because you're right. We had, at that moment, we had not won nor lost any games. Right there, you were selling the excitement of, we just got the job here. Now I think that mixed in with our track record, right? Again, I know it was at the mid-major level, but we had inherited a 7-win program 2 years prior, and when we got there, the blueprint hasn't changed, and we went from 7 to 20, went to NCAA tournament our first year, turned that to 28 wins our second year. And so you're selling what we just did, except at a new level. And then to rewind it even further, the blueprint of what we did at Virginia Tech, right?
Mhm.
Again, like I mentioned earlier, we very, very eerily similar to that job we took, when Kenny Brooks gets the job. And back then, though, the transfer portal wasn't here yet, right? Like, you had some transfers, but a lot of that was high school and JUCO, and I think that's why it took a little bit longer. The portal now, it is chaos, but it allows you, I think, in a much quicker way, if you do it the right way to build faster. But it's not one that we're going to lean on in a sense to build for long term, right? And so I think though for me, although it was chaos, um, it goes back to we're just being the best version of ourselves. And I feel like that I've done that throughout my career, whether not only coaching, but in the recruiting side of things. And when you're true to yourself and relationships do matter, uh, we were rewarded on the back end of that, right? If you look at our roster that we put together, every one of these all but one really is somebody I had previous relationship with before they came to Clemson. You look at Loyal McQueen, comes from Alabama. It's an in-state kid from Florence, South Carolina. I mean, I was in the gym in Florence, South Carolina while she was 13, 14 years old, right? So when that phone call is made when she goes in the portal, it was almost like you were catching up. Not who are you? What's your backstory? It was, well, how have you been? You know, how's your sister doing? Mom, dad, how are they? And so I think that really allowed us to put the class that we did in this team that we put together, because all those phone calls were just catching up, right? And then spilling over of, hey, here's an opportunity that we have here at Clemson now that I'm the head coach in a new program that I think benefits what you're looking for. And when that meshed, I thought we put a heck of a roster together.
Absolutely. You talk about that vision, the track record that you've had prior. So I'd love to talk about that and sort of harp on what you said about Virginia Tech and Clemson, two programs with fantastic resources. When you initially were brought on there, the theme that I sort of picked up with you in doing prep for this was success really follows you. And whether it's a UT when you're back-to-back coach of the year, NCAA tournament appearances, which is going to be a word that Clemson fans will certainly be hoping and looking for with this program. And then obviously what you did with Virginia Tech, just turning around programs that were in a point where they didn't want to be, and you left them in a better spot than where you came from. And so just what lessons are you taking from those two programs into this job at Clemson? And what are sort of the, I guess, memories or just sort of highlights from that turning a mid-major team in Chattanooga into a consistent NCAA tournament team and being able to be a part of a really great staff at Virginia Tech and building that program as well in the ACC?
Yeah, I think that in today's world, you can't forget about who you are, right? Don't change in the sense everything you stand for because the times have changed, right? I'm not naive enough to not think or we yes we have to evolve, but with NIL and this thing's become very very transactional in this business, and although we have to evolve and change our way of thinking a little bit because that is an important piece, but who we are is not transactional first. Everything that we've done, and I get that blueprint from Kenny when I got up to Virginia Tech. That them 6 years are invaluable to me to how to build something. And I thought the two cornerstones that we had there, and I've held true all through Virginia Tech, through Chattanooga, and will be no different here, is relationships first, right? You better get to know your young people. You better put a staff around your student athletes that care about them. And when they feel that, then you lead to the other cornerstone of development, right? Of you can hold them accountable, you can push them, you can love on them. When those two things go hand in hand, you make people better. And uh, just like anything, and especially a place like Clemson, where you're going to need to develop young people, if you hold on to relationships first, work on development, you're going to have an opportunity to create something special. We're not at a place that transactional is first. And I think, again, that is happening in this business. And for us, we're going to stay as close to the old school way as we can while we think about the new school way, right? We're going to make sure that our kids get taken care of just like every other student athlete in the country. But it's going to stay relational first, so that when things get tough, it's not easy to just drop out, right? We're going to continue to fight for one another, sacrifice for one another, so that we can all get something very, very special and have a pride in the program that we call Clemson. And so to me, that's what will stay true. It's what we've done everywhere I've been, and I think there's no why would you change what's been very successful for you?
Absolutely. So moving to more of the X's and O's of what people should expect from you, if you had to sort of describe your coaching style and sort of what fans that come watch you for this first year, what should they expect to see in terms of a product on the court and a style of basketball? What will be this team's identity?
Yeah. Uh, if I knew that answer, I would share it. We're still learning, right? Like, I think that the back to the evolving, just like I mentioned in this whole, how do you run a program? It's no different than how are we going to play. You know, I've had these kids here now for 10 days, and I've known them for quite a while, but this is the first time we've had them together, right? And what are their skill sets? What makes the most sense for us to be successful? I'm not the old hard-headed way of we're going to play this way and this way only, right? We're going to evolve and change so that we have the best chance to win games come November, December, January, February, March, and that will change throughout the year, right? As people start to scout and start to learn our team, we're going to have to evolve and change. And I think that the best coaches in the country continue to try to stay one step ahead to gives you the best chance to win. How would I like to play? I think we're going to play much faster than I did at Chattanooga. We were one of the slower teams in the country while we were there, but I also felt like it was our best way to win games there. We were very efficient. And so we're going to have to blend that, right? Playing out in transition, because I think we have some kids that can get out and run and make plays. We do shoot the basketball very, very well collectively. It's not just one kid, right? Which allows us to create some space. And I think that's hard to guard in transition. While we figure out in the half court, what does it look like? What we will do is share the ball and play for one another, right? And I think that creates an exciting brand. How do we create advantages and then play for each other? It's not going to be come down and watch one kid dribble, 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 right? It's movement and sharing the basketball and playing efficient. Like there's you can play fast and you watch people run up and down, but if you're not very efficient, that's not fun to watch. And I think on the defensive end, that's probably the one answer I can give is, we've been kind of a pack line, keep the ball in front defense for the last, again, my last 3 years at Virginia Tech. I was kind of the defensive coordinator. We were at Chattanooga. We're not a gamble and press and deny and helter skelter. It's a lot more hold each other accountable, play for one another. And that's kind of our culture, right? It's what we talk about every day. And then if you were to watch our defense, you should say, well, now I see it, right? That's what they say they believe in. And they're playing for one another. They get stops and then they get out and have a lot of fun playing for each other on the offensive side.
And in terms of year one for you, and the one thing that's stuck out to me is I don't know who asked it, but they asked, "Well, what does success look like for you in year one?" And you talked about how you don't measure that with a number. So what to you does that mean? And sort of how do you envision, I guess I'll be asking the same question in that sense is what does success look like for you in year one, whether it's numbers or it is something more of a culture and a foundational goal?
Yeah, I'm a big believer. It goes back to what we just talked about. If we take care of the relationships and the development piece, right, and that's all we talk about, we will create an it factor around our program, having a confidence to us, have a togetherness. You do that, allowing us to be the best basketball coaches we can be. The results, the business will take care of itself, and so we don't talk numbers. We don't talk. Everyone's trying to win a conference championship when everyone gets here in the summer, if you're one of the 360 teams in the country, if you're not setting that as a goal, then what are you doing? Right. So that's like a given. And, for us, I think our first goal you mentioned earlier, I've been to 5 straight NCAA tournaments. Why are we changing that mentality now? There's certain numbers that I know you have to get to that, but why? Let's don't focus on that, right? We got to be the best version of ourselves today, and we're creating that it factor, that togetherness, that toughness, the sacrifice for one another. So for us, it's literally that's every day. Are we getting a little bit better? We can't take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Just being a little bit better. And if you stay in the moment, because again, I don't even know what today is, June 27th, right? Like we got a long, long year ahead. And if you look that far ahead, you're not getting better in the moment. So just where your feet are today, we'll get a little bit better as we talk about the it factor and the excitement and the energy for one another. We'll continue to slowly create that. The business side will take care of itself long term. So, what does that look like? I think we have a team that can compete to get to an NCAA tournament right now. Right? Like if that's what you want to know long term, what does that number look like? I think we said it in a team meeting. Selection Sunday, they're going to call Clemson's name, and so that's what we're working to. What does that look like? There's a long, long road ahead to get to that.
Absolutely. And right there, guys, if you need a sales pitch to come to some games this year and watch it, I think it's that clip right there that you'll see. But Shawn, there's something that's really interesting, that's fascinating that drove part of why I wanted to do this interview is the sport of women's basketball has exploded astronomically. It feels like in the last couple years. And I see it on TV. So my favorite sportscasters are leading their shows now with talking about the WNBA, talking about like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, sort of the rivalry between them and sort of how it's made the sport better. And more people are tuning in, more people are watching. But for you, when you see that, how do you feel like Clemson can sort of capitalize on that new excitement for the sport and take that into what is translating to a lot of excitement for you in year one and getting people filling those seats in Littlejohn?
Yeah, I'm still learning how we can get the fan base because it's here. I mean, gymnastics, 8,000 in Little John last year. I mean, I went to a softball game throughout a first pitch. It's packed, right? Obviously, baseball, we're super regionals. It's standing room only. The fanfare and fan base is, yes, we're a football school, and I understand that, but we have a fan base that loves Clemson University and its athletic department. And for us, first and foremost, we got to put a product on the floor that they're willing to come and support. But here's my invite. We need help. Come and watch and be a part of it. This is not just a come and sit in the stands. We are open, all access program. We're going to be the best version of ourselves and represent, but get to know us, right? Get to know our staff, get to know our players, and we're going to continue to try to come out into the community, onto campus, and invite those that want to be a part of this, because we are going to make this thing special, but we need help. And so that would be my pitch, because it is. I believe that the women's game is not much different now than it has been. It's just finally with the Caitlin Clark and the Angel Reese and that social media thing, right, is really attached. And now it's brought eyes to what has been. And so the one thing missing is we need to be better inside our program on the court. I believe we have the product now. Come and watch, come be a part of it. We have a lot of young women on our team that these families that have little daughters can look and say, wow, I would love for my little daughter to be that one day, because the way they carry themselves, the way they play for each other, that's all stuff that I think is what's drawn our attention to it, right? They're very, very relatable with the Caitlin Clarks and the Angel Reeses of where they come from. That's what we've now put on the court here, right? Of something that we would be very proud of if our young daughter became that one day. And so please come, please support. And we will then on our side of things, make sure we're putting a product out there that makes this university proud.
Absolutely, guys. You heard the man. You heard Shawn's message there. Shawn, before we get into a couple rapid fire questions before we wrap up, I want to take a quick second to shout out a good friend of mine, Faxon Childress, and then Austin, the women's basketball SID, for helping set this up. It's been a fantastic interview. I know Faxon and those guys have been super connected to this program for a long time. And so I'm glad to sort of hop on the bandwagon, per se, and get this interview going with you, Shawn. But let's get into a couple rapid fire questions. I always love asking the players who they model their game after. But for you as a coach, is there maybe someone, maybe it was inside that circle or in the staffs that you've been a part of, but is there maybe someone on the outside where you just sort of watch how they carried themselves and went, if I could be a little bit like that or sort of take a little bit from that guy or someone from that staff, who would that be and why?
Yeah, I think that you try to always take little nuggets along the way. I feel like I've learned so much from the staffs I've been a part of wow, when I get my program one day, I'd want to do that. Again, I'd be telling a story if I didn't think I got a lot of what I do from Kenny Brooks. I think that me relating to him obviously is a male in this business, but also a father, right, and a husband, and how to do the work-life balance, but then really making this thing relational, not only with your own family, but connected to your student athletes and your staff. So a lot of what we do in the blueprint of how we do things, the difference is my personality is totally different from him, right? And you come and watch us. It's not a show. It's not about me, but I do have a lot of energy, right? I got some passion inside of me that spills out, and so my personality and his is totally different. But it's the blueprint is something that we've really, really held true here. Very similar when I was up underneath his watch. But again, throughout the years, there's so many, right? Gino and how his little time of what he did at UConn, obviously they're still really good, but he went through however many years in a row where they were pretty much what felt like the only team in college and women's college basketball. Um, so along the way, I think that there's plenty of coaches you take from, learn from, but also some things you're like, wow, I wouldn't do that. you know so I think also my first boss, Corey Fox, is another one that I've stayed very, very close with. He gave me an opportunity in this, and in a sense I feel like I treat my staff very similar. I throw them in the fire, right? I'm not a micromanager. I just believe in good people, and I want them to have their own fingerprint on things. So you take little things along the way while you watch so many of the greats, and how do they relate to their players? How are they installing certain things? So I'd be leaving a bunch of people out if I started saying names, but those two probably meant the most in my career. Is I was able to just look up to somebody that I was going to become.
What's the best moment or game that you've been a part of as a coach?
Oh goodness, that is a tough.
It's a
Been,
curveball, I'm
been
sorry.
yeah, I've been through quite a few. I think for me, the last 2 years in the championship game of our Southern Conference, the first year being obviously you're in your first year, you're the underdog. I'll never forget sitting on the bench with my 8-year-old, who's I guess 6 at that time, and put my arm around him and just saying, "Look around, like." Here we are. We have a chance to cut some nets down today, and then to obviously win that basketball game and take that program back to where it had belonged. But then follow it up the very next year where all the pressure is on you. You're the clear favorites going to a tournament. You have to win the tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. So those two games, I think, really because we won them. Now, if you flipped it, and I would still say that the next game following that, I'll have very, very fond memories of, even though we lost. My first year, we win and go to the NCAA tournament, and they send us to Blacksburg, right where I had just come from, and to walk through that tunnel and see 9,500 or whatever it was. I mean, it's a sold out crowd. I remember the first game we ever coached it in Blacksburg, and there was 500 in the stands. And I'll never forget Kenny, my boss, as we sit there in the first game, and he says, "Look around, right? One day we're going to fill this place." And it got filled, and I was there, just happened to be on the other sideline, right? So those are you have so many memories like that when you've been doing this 17, 18 years, but those are probably the most recent.
In terms of the last couple months at Clemson, I know you're very familiar with the area, but is there a spot that you've been to, maybe it's a game or maybe it's a place to eat that's really struck out to you that's like, this is maybe a spot I wasn't aware of before that I'm definitely going to be revisiting now often?
Yeah, when you got 3 kids, you're always searching for a place where they can run crazy and you can enjoy some time. So we're still continuing to look for those places. The Lighthouse out on Lake Kiwi is a great place. The kids run a little crazy, and we kind of sit and relax. Lakeside Lodge is really one of those places here around campus that is, I think, a hidden gem. Not many people know about it unless you're staying at the lodge, but has a really, really good restaurant and a cool little back patio area that overlooks Lake Hartwell. And, again, you go downtown, there's so many good spots. I'm learning some of those now that we're in the summer, and you don't have to fight all the students downtown. With so many that run downtown. So, but most of ours have been out on the water. Letting the kids run around, play in the water. Um, I, Another one for us, the Clemson Marina is a really cool spot. They got a playground out there. You can watch the boats coming in and out. It's got a really cool view coming back across the water, looking at the football stadium. So those have been probably, but that's more family friendly. Allow the kids to again not harass anyone inside a restaurant while we got to sit down with an 8, 3, and 1-year old.
John, this has been fantastic. Any final words or messages to anyone watching? And if you've watched this far, shout out to you.
Well, no, I appreciate it. I think you mentioned it. Austin and Faxon have been phenomenal, and kind of creating the media side of things, sharing our story. I told Austin when I got here, as much as we can be a part of, because we want to share our story. Again, it isn't about me. I am the leader, and I'm excited to be here. Proud of having the opportunity to lead this program. But I think we have an awesome story to share. I think that the team we've put together, we're very, very relatable to the Clemson way. And it comes in a variety of forms, but the core values of who they are as people, it really, really mirrors Clemson. And I think that I would open an invite to all come be a part, because it is going to be a program of not only as people, but the product that we put is going to be fun, exciting, and one that you're going to want to be in the stands to watch. But not only because you're watching, because you're going to feel like you're a part of it.
Awesome, Shawn. This was Clemson women's basketball head coach Shawn Poppie on the Man with the Plan podcast. Guys, subscribe if you want more interviews like this. And if you want Shawn back, obviously I do. So we can maybe get an episode going before the season starts, Shawn. But thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe and let you know what you think down below. Thank you guys as always for the support. And thank you for the previous support on our NBA final series. It was exciting to do that final episode with Faxon. And we'll hopefully be seeing more of him. And be sure to be on the lookout for Coach Poppy. Guys, thank you so much for the support. Take care and have a great day.